Hi guys, I think this is my best zinnia garden yet. Look at all these gorgeous colors. And I think I mentioned this before. This was just seed tossed out from a box that came from the dollar store. So for $1.25, I've been enjoying all these beautiful blooms. And also the butterflies and the bees have gone crazy. Aren't they beautiful, guys? I have singles here. Oh, look at this little creature. He's kind of cute. Enjoying sitting on that pink zinnia. And then I have some doubles over here. This is an ageratum, a tall ageratum. Here I had blue and white come up. It was interesting. And these were just volunteers from the seeds last year. But I have been really enjoying these. Some of them are really tall. Here's a little bee bath I made for the bees and the butterflies. And it's just an overturned pot and a saucer on top with some glass marbles in it. And it's just a shallow place they can come and take a drink without drowning. So I like to have those set up around the garden. Couldn't be any easier. This is a sweet dumpling squash, and I planted it midsummer to replace a zucchini that was decimated by squash vine borers, and it has really taken off. There are lots of flowers. A lot of the flowers are male, but I did see that there is one sweet dumpling squash under here. It's a green squash. Isn't that pretty, guys? It almost looks like a small pumpkin. So I'll have to see how that tastes. Hopefully it's going to mature for me before the frost. And I do have some others down here that look like they might develop into squash. Here's one down here. This very small one right here. But I'm not sure it's going to have time to develop. So we'll have to see on that. But I have, I planted beans all around the yard too. These are the Burgundy Beans, I think. They're really nice. They're stringless, and when you cook them, they turn green, but they're like a string bean. So I have those popping up all over the garden. And I made some for dinner. These are just the flowers that happen before the beans develop, but they're beautiful purple flowers. And this is a zucchini. Oh, here's a couple bees pollinating in here. Looks like 2 bees are pollinating. Taking pollen from that flower. But everything is bouncing back. We had a very bad heat wave. Here's a little baby butternut squash here, so we'll see if that develops. But everything cooled off, and things are now starting to bounce back because we had a few days of good heavy rain, and it brought in much cooler weather. And then down here, my pepper harvest won't be so big, but I might get maybe 5 or 6 peppers. One of them's already ripe there. But these are, I think they're called Bangkok peppers. They're hot peppers, and I give them to my son because he loves to cook with spicy peppers. This was a pepper plant I saved from last year, and I haven't given it very much attention, but I'm thrilled that it made a handful of peppers for me to pass along. I did want to mention that all my kale plants seem to have some bit of damage, some worse than others. But if you leave kale in, the new growth that comes out of the middle is just fine. And once the weather gets cooler, you have fewer pests bothering these things. You know, pests are very seasonal. So if you can just stick it out, as long as you don't have Better Homes and Gardens coming to photograph your yard, you can stick it out and go through the ugly periods, because otherwise, you know, if you want your garden to be pristine and pull out anything that is touched by pests, you could be missing out on some harvests. So that is going to be my policy on kale. Doesn't it look horrible, guys? It's like Swiss cheese. But the new leaves inside are perfectly fine, and they're going to grow up beautiful. And you just strip off the damaged ones once those come up. So that's my policy. I don't spray, I don't treat, I don't do anything. I just wait it out. Here's the polytunnel garden from a wider angle. And I forgot to mention, I put up that trellis structure. Next year I want to try to grow kukuza, and that climbs. And if I don't grow that, I might grow some beans on there. But, you know, I'm always thinking about the next gardening season, especially when fall rolls around. You're evaluating what might grow well in a certain spot. It's really funny. I came out here so early thinking it would be quiet, and I have helicopters and trash trucks and leaf blowers already. But I'm just going to go ahead and film. This is my Suburban garden tour, and it's quite noisy in the suburbs. But what I'm showing you now is the ground. It's littered by wild persimmons, and these are quite tasty. I leave some of them on the ground for the animals. They're very pretty. This is what they look like. They're very small, but they have very large seeds, so I don't actually use them. So it's here for the wildlife. And the other thing that I do with them is I gather them up and I just toss them into my bins, and it's going to break down and create really nice soil. And if they do sprout, I can just pluck the sprout and lay it on top, and it'll just die back. But oh, here's a little kale, and I'll show you. This leaf looks terrible, but look at how nice the new leaves look. I hope you can see that. They look wonderful. The tomatoes, of course, are all kind of going over, and that's okay. I took some cuttings, actually, of my beefsteak tomatoes, and I might take cuttings of these. These are purple. These are purple ones. Brandywine, I think. But this would be a nice cutting, and if I can get cuttings for next year, I'm not sure I can keep them all winter, but we'll see. I might try to take cuttings of that as well. Because last year when I went to go buy tomato plants, they were $8 a piece. I mean, that was really unheard of, but there's a lot of nice areas where I can take cuttings from this. So I'm going to give that a try. So as you can see, I've tucked kale in everywhere, and it's been growing all summer. It's just been hidden by some of the other plants, which are starting to die back. And here is the rustic garden bed with the container bed behind it. Everything's come back to life after the heat of August. September and October are usually a time when the plants pick up growing again. You can get some of your best harvests, but it's also nice because you're not always struggling to keep it watered. I want to show you how well my living mulch is doing. These are my lentils. This is my green manure. And everywhere I planted it, it's filled in. Looks like some of it's gotten eaten back. But you know, part of green manure are the roots that it sets down. So let me show you over here. It's been eaten just a little bit by something. I'm not sure what, but it's a very thick carpet of biomass and organic matter. But everywhere I planted it, it's come in and created kind of a green carpet. And that's why I like the lentils so much as a green ground cover. And it's an annual, so once the cold weather comes in, it just dies back in place, becomes part of the soil structure. And I still have a few flowers going strong here. This is the Cardinal Flower, gorgeous red. You can see why it's named the Cardinal Flower. And everything is just doing really well ever since it rained. Things are bouncing back, and the cooler weather, things start to grow again. So I'm really happy with the way the rustic garden bed is coming, and my soil improvement projects are really coming along in this bed. I'm really happy to say I think it's going to be a lot nicer quality soil for next season. As a gardener, you're always thinking of the next season. So that's what I'm doing. And we have a whole bunch of mums coming into bloom here. Beautiful yellow mum. Now this is a little bit leggy, probably because it's a partly shaded location, but also I could have cut it back and made it thicker. That would have delayed the blooms, but something like the Chelsea chop, when it first comes up, if you cut it back and it just bushes out better. Becomes a thicker, almost shrubby type structure. But I'm happy to have all those blooms, and I think they'll be pretty for cutting. I might cut a few branches and bring those in. So guys, that is a little rustic garden update for you. I hung this beautiful bird box up, and I started to hose the cobwebs off it, and all these wasps came out. So apparently it's become a wasp house, which I'm not crazy about, but they're pollinators and they're part of the garden as well. So I'm just going to do my best not to anger them. And I did hear that they don't nest in the same spot twice. So hopefully next year I will not be seeing them. I've never grown pumpkins before, and powdery mildew or something has gotten to my vines. As you can see, they're looking quite terrible. But I do have, I think these are called Long Island cheese pumpkins. I do have a couple down here that I wanted to show you if I can reach through the spiders. Isn't that a beautiful color, guys? Look at that. This is a very difficult filming job. But look, there it is, developing on the vine, and it's still green. The vine is still green. Let me see if I can get a better view. Oh, it's so hard to see. There it is. But the vine is still green, so I'm going to leave it on there as long as the vine is green. And I have a butternut squash back here as well, putting on a little bit of size. It looks pretty small still. But again, the vine is still green, which tells me it's still getting some nutrients. So I'll leave those until the vine starts to turn yellow or brown. Even though the plant looks terrible, look, we have more powdery mildew. And this pumpkin vine has completely died off, all the leaves. But the vine is still green. So I'll keep them on as long as the vine is green. And the butternut is coming out of this little container here. And I did something exciting, guys. I bought some walking Egyptian onions from Baker's Creek, and they looked so dry. I didn't think anything would happen, because I've heard that if they're dried out, they won't grow. But these did. So I planted a few of them around in different areas, and hopefully next year, some of these walking onions will walk. But this is a beautiful plant here. I have no idea what it was. It reminded me of my Joe Pye plant. And it was out in the front and growing in my ditch. And I moved it back here. And boy, did the pollinators love it. For all I know, it's some type of weed. But it is a gorgeous, it's just beautiful. Let me show you the flowers close up. They're just beautiful. And later in the day, it's covered with butterflies and bees. This is what the leaf looks like. So let me know if you guys know what it is. Like I said, it could be a weed or related to the Joe Pye weed somehow, but it is just a beautiful bush. And I'm going to step back. You have to, and then one grew here. So so I put some cardboard around it so it doesn't get run over by the lawnmower. But hopefully next year I'll have 2. It's a big cloud of soft flowers. Very tall. I would say it's about 6 feet tall. And the pollinators love it. I've seen everything on there. Of course, when I come out here with my camera to try to capture the butterflies, they fly away quickly. And then I just wanted to show you I have one more of these pumpkins coming. I had planted a couple vines, but it's back there. So I just love the color of these. But I've never grown pumpkins before, and I wasn't sure they'd grow back here in this partly shady area. But it looks like I'll get a couple of small ones. And then over here we have some more kale. As you can see, I went heavy on the kale. And the pumpkin vines did fill up this bed with their huge leaves, but now that the leaves have died back, it gave me a chance to sprinkle out a microgreen mix all throughout here. So some of these might grow into mature plants. This was another thing I bought at the dollar store. It was a package of microgreens, and you know, it's different kinds of brassicas and bok choy and greens. So I thought these are good cool weather crops, and I can either just use it as a green manure if they're just planted too closely, or hopefully I might get some plants out of here. We'll see what happens. It's a total experiment, but for $1 I got all of these little starts, which I could even transplant, I suppose. A lot of my marigolds got eaten this year, but this variety did not. So I'm going to be saving a lot of seed from this one. I don't know what makes it pest resistant, but I am going to save these seeds, and I've got some nice seed heads here. Once they get pale like this, they're full of wonderful seeds. Let's see if we can get them out. I'll show you what we have here. Just take that off. Oh, they're beautiful seeds. It's hard to do with one hand, but look how black they are. That's what you want to see in a seed. In a marigold seed, it should be black in color. I have to come out here and do some seed saving. Here are some beefsteak tomato cuttings that I took, and I definitely think I'm going to go and get some brandywine cuttings as well. Brandywine tomatoes, because they did not do well in the shade, but next year I'm putting them in a sunnier location, and we'll see how they do. So guys, thanks for joining me in the garden this morning for a rambling walk and a lot of rambling words. But I hope you're having fun in your fall garden, and I'll see you next time.